Hi, everyone. What a day. I didn't think I was going to make this live. So then I changed the time because I thought that, my train was, I'm just going to change the time because I don't want to be late. I'm never late. It's not professional. And then, but then I thought, okay, I'll just schedule it for an hour later. So even if I make it on time, I will just have an hour to like relax and just like center myself. But then I just slammed a ton of sugar in my face. And now I know I'm going to drop, I'm going to dip. And then that's it. I'll be done. And then I won't be able to do anything. I'll be of no use to man or beast. And so I changed the time back to 7 p.m. GMT, which is, I believe, 2 o'clock on the East Coast of America. Hi, guys. Happy Women's Week. Happy Women's Month. Happy Women's Day for Tuesday. What a great day it was. I just totally loved it. I was on LinkedIn all day because I just knew, I had some clients that I'd done some work for and I knew they would be posting stuff on Tuesday. So I was like, I'm going to jump in to LinkedIn all day and see these amazing posts go out. And then I just saw way more posts than I ever thought possible. And it was so stunning. It was so full of love and affection and women empowerment and just all the feels. And I felt really jazzed. It was a really good day. And then I started to think, and this is what I've put in my newsletter this week. If you've read it, if you're on my list, I thought to myself, but wouldn't it be rad if we didn't need a Women's Day anymore? Like, we just didn't need it because the work of International Women's Day would have been done and we would just think about it fondly and with gratitude. And we would think back to that time when we had this amazing day and we fought for equality, but now we don't need that anymore because we've achieved it. And then I was like, it's 2022. It would have happened already, you know? So I did 2 talks this week on breaking the bias and on women's rights in the workplace, and really about diversity, equity, and inclusion, which we always wrap up with the same ribbon, but actually they're 3 very different things. And just because you have one of them doesn't mean you have all of them, particularly when it comes to diversity. You can have diversity at the yin yang, but if you don't have equity and inclusion, then your diversity means nothing. And in my talks, I've been chatting a lot about my childhood. So growing up in a home that was very dominated by my father, and growing up in a school where I was bullied a lot by a certain kind of kid who was super popular, and mainly boys who were like very masculine and of a particular kind of masculinity, like really good at rugby. And they would sort of decide what the social hierarchy was in the school. And in both cases, my home and my school life, there was plenty diversity. I was at home with 2 sisters and a mother, and then, my dad, who was male. So we had like way tons of representation in the home space. And then at school, I'm pretty sure that it was very split gender-wise in a very sort of 50-50 kind of way. And yet, so plenty diversity, but really no inclusion or equity, like none whatsoever. And we're getting better at it because, the world is moving forward, and, hashtag the Me Too movement did a lot for us as women, which is amazing. But we're not there. We're not there. And that's okay. Well, it's not. It's not okay. But it will be. Maybe. If we all take on, some of the work, it requires all of us to be conscious. So it was really interesting today when I was this week when I was setting up for this LinkedIn Live, which I have to share with you. So I've called it shame with a twist. And when I wrote out that headline, shame with a twist, I couldn't post it. LinkedIn wouldn't let me post it. And I was like, what the hell is going on? This is crazy. I've never had a problem scheduling any of my lives. What the hell? And then I was like, what? And I realized that it was because I had the word in the title and in the description. So I had to change that. And now it's called V-shame. So yeah, we can't talk about the vag on LinkedIn. And hey, if the powers that be see this, they might in fact remove it, because I've said the word about 5 times and the word vag. So there's a little tip for you. And so what I wanted to try and figure out today, but I didn't have the time to do the research. I wanted to figure out today if the same thing would be applicable if you use the word and I don't know the answer to that yet, but I'm damn well going to find out. I can assure you of that. Right, so the theme for International Women's Day 2022 is #break the bias. And this is something that I'm really interested in. And I think about it a lot, because I think that we all have internal biases that we don't even know exist, because they're so deeply rooted in us. And they're taught to us from when we're children. And I think a lot of this has to do with language. And this is what my talk really focuses on a lot, is about the kind of language we're using in society, particularly around children, because that's when biases are instilled and grown and developed, And so I really think that language is something really important that we take for granted, and we use language in a way that very often isn't respectful or responsible. And yet language, I feel like, is the cornerstone of one of the cornerstones of our humanity. Language allows us to share culture and tradition and history, and it allows us to express our emotions and our desires and our needs. And it allows us to communicate with one another. It's one of the major things that separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom. And so we need to be very careful with the language that we use. So in my shame, wow, that was a Freudian slip. In my talk, I talk about V-shame, and I talk about V-shame with a twist, because I have heard certain language in my sphere for my whole life, and I've never really thought about it. Well, I never really thought about it until I reached the age of, I was probably in my mid to late 20s, and I'd had many conversations with many feminists. Most of my best friends, all of my best friends are feminists. What am I talking about? And I began to realize that this language that we are using and that we are taught from a really early age is deeply problematic. And it's problematic because it builds and preserves pockets of power that make it very difficult for some of us to exist, and they're almost entirely removed from us, and we can't access them. And so that means then that we cannot access wealth, and we can't access opportunities, and we can't access equity, and that's really difficult. So I want to play a little game called V-shame with a twist, which is the name of this LinkedIn Live. And I'm going to read you some things. Now, it's quite a long list, but that goes to show you how often we hear this stuff as women. And I'm going to read these things to you, and I just want you to think about what comes up, because I think it's really illuminating. And if you're a woman, you will have heard most of these things, if not all of them. but you would have heard them about yourself or your sex. So, without further ado, let's play V-Shame with a twist. You're a good driver for a guy. Men's writing is a discrete area of fiction because men write about special men's things. It's of no interest to most people. Are you a new dad? There are so many ways your wife can be involved in your child's life. You just need to encourage her to play a full and active part. I'm going to interview a man about what it's like to be a GP and a dad. What should I ask him? Male author and male doctor are not offensive terms. It's just a way to differentiate them from normal authors and doctors. Your wife changes nappies. That is amazing. Or get your wife to babysit. Are you a working dad? That must be so hard. Is it okay for dads to put themselves first sometimes? Don't let your son wear that to school, hey? He'll distract the girls. Men belong in the kitchen. If guys want to wear shorts, then they deserve what's coming to them. He was asking for it. He's a whore. He's a slut. No woman wants to have sex with a virgin. How much did he have to drink that night? Well, what was he wearing that night? Why does he get so emotional? He is such an attention whore. He'd be so much hotter if he smiled. His drive is kind of intimidating. Can men have it all? He doesn't want kids. Isn't he worried he won't be fulfilled? His biological clock is ticking. He's not taking his wife's last name. Is he planning on working after the baby's born? He's going to let someone else raise his kid after he goes back to work. Does your wife mind that you make more money than her? Are you really fulfilled as a stay-at-home dad? Look, I know he's the most experienced person in the room who's, done the most work, but we cannot make a man vice president. Well, the other vice presidents wouldn't be comfortable with that. Oh, he works in finance. Is he a secretary? Sir, I know you're a partner in this board meeting, but please can you take the minutes and make the tea? Men are just better at that stuff. It's crazy, right? It is absolutely crazy because we would never say that stuff to women. But women hear that stuff all the time. And we hear it from men that we love. We hear it from our husbands, our brothers-in-law, our friends. And we hear it from complete strangers and colleagues and other men that we work with. And this is really, really difficult because when women hear this stuff, when anyone hears this stuff, I mean, not just women, when anyone hears this stuff enough, they start to experience a lower sense of confidence. Their self-esteem starts to drop. They may become apathetic because they just feel like, well, what's the point? And they know that people hold these biases. And so they're not inclined to want to work particularly hard or prove themselves because they know that there really is no point. Now, the problem with this language is that it starts when we are very small. It starts when we are children. So girls are spoken to this way, but they're also pulled out of school because their bra straps are showing or because they're wearing a strappy top. Or their skirts are too short. And so we say to girls, don't distract the boys, don't tease the boys, don't tempt the boys, don't distract the male teachers, your bra strap is showing, you have a nipple stand, your bra is the wrong color, your skirt is too short, cross your legs, don't be a know-it-all, don't be a show-off, don't be bossy, any number of things we say to girls. And so we teach girls that they are powerful and that they are dangerous, and we sexualize their bodies. And we teach boys to objectify girls. And then we are completely shocked when 1 in 5 women in this country, the UK, is raped or assaulted. And we are dumbfounded when men interrupt us and don't make eye contact with us in meetings. And we cannot understand why the gender pay gap doesn't close. But if these things are happening with children and we are teaching children these biases from before they can even speak, then how can the gender pay gap be anything other than what it is? And how can we expect violence against women to decrease? Because that's the natural progression, right? The natural progression is that we teach children this stuff. We use this very problematic sexist language. We shame women, we shame girls. And then that's how it continues forever. And the problem with this is not just for girls and women, it's also deeply problematic for boys and men, because we tell men that they are very powerful and that they are allowed to objectify women. And so when they grow up and they're called out on that, they don't initially understand what the problem is. And that's the problem with deep-rooted bias, is that they can't see that what they're doing is problematic. And it's problematic for men on another level, because if you grow up as a boy who doesn't fit that masculine mold, you know, you're the big, powerful rugby player or football player or sportsman, and you're a bit smaller than the other boys, or you're a little bit emotional, or you cry, or you speak about your feelings, then you're either bullied at worst, and at best you're just simply othered or excluded. And my 12-year-old nephew is actually going through this at the moment, where he's smaller than the other boys, and he's so beautiful and artistic and amazing, and he's having problems. You know, he's having problems at school. And that is because we don't like the feminine. We are not fans of the feminine unless it's in a bikini. And we don't enjoy being around femininity as a society. You run like a girl, you scream like a girl, don't be such a girl. We're not big fans of girls. So this idea of breaking the bias is really about addressing the biases that we hold inside of us, and being ruthless with ourselves and calling ourselves out on our shitty behavior. And we are all biased in many different ways. And I catch myself often thinking a biased thought or saying something, and someone will call me out on it, or I'll think, oh my God, like what the hell is wrong with me? And so no one can escape it. It affects all of us. It is part of our humanity. And what we really need to do, I think, is start changing our language, because language, as I said, is really powerful, but also your language affects other people. And so as soon as you start to change your language, you start to give other people a different experience and a different idea about who you are. But also we know, after years of neuroscience and the research that's been done into that we can change pathways in our brains, right? We can adopt different kinds of language and different words, and we can change these neural pathways in our brains so that we have a different life experience eventually. And so I think if there's one thing that I want to leave you with, it is that we need to be more aware and conscious of the language that we are using. And just because that language has been used for decades or hundreds of years, and people say, oh, but it's just a joke, or I'm just kidding around, or lighten up, or don't be so petty, it's not a big deal. No, it doesn't cut it anymore. It just doesn't cut it anymore. And we need to be more conscious of what we're saying and who we're saying it to, and how other people are experiencing us. Because I think if I'm noticing in the world just generally, we are becoming more and more selfish every single day, and it's terrible. And we need to think about other people, and we need to be better. We just need to be better. So thank you so much for watching, if you have, and if you've watched this after the fact, please just drop a comment and let me know what you thought about it, and give me your feedback. I'm really interested to know your thoughts and feelings, and I hope everyone is well, and I hope that everyone had the most wonderful Women's Day and Women's Week, and continues to have an incredible Women's Month, but also continues to just check their biases all the time. Like that I think would just make the world a little bit easier and softer for us to live in. Have the most beautiful day. Much love. Be you always, everywhere.